what are the requirements? You got your J waiver. What do you have to do to fulfill that? It's not just a stamp on a piece of paper and then you don't have to worry about going back for 2 years. You have to work as an H-1B for the employer who sponsored you. Can't be self-employment. You have to be sponsored by somebody. And it's not usually a hospital because in states like California, Texas, Washington, hospitals cannot directly employ a physician. So it has to be a private practice group or an individual physician or a community health organization. And you have to work for them in H-1B for 3 years in the underserved area. And we get a lot of questions because a lot of lawyers, for whatever reason, they don't stress this, or doctors think that they can get around it and nobody's going to find out. And I don't mean you, but I mean your potential employers. You must work in the underserved area for at least 40 hours a week. So what if you have an employer who has a clinic in the underserved area and they also have another clinic in the fancy part of the city or something? And they say, well, gee, we're getting all these new patients in the fancy part of the city. We'd like you to work there. That doesn't work. I mean, unless you work at least 40 hours a week in the underserved area, you're not going to get a J waiver. I mean, you already got the J waiver in your hand, but when it comes time to getting permanent residence, somebody's going to look and say, wait a second, you weren't working in the underserved area, and you're going to have to go home. So just, be very careful about that. How about people who want to change employment? I mean, you've got a J waiver, and then your spouse gets a residency program in another state, and you think, well, she's pregnant. I want to be together when she has the baby. Blah blah. Can I just change jobs? And the answer is no. You can't do that. I mean, the only time you could change jobs is that if your employer breaches the contract. If they're supposed to pay you, let's say, $120,000 a year, but they're really paying you $90,000 a year, they have breached your contract. And you can let them know that, and if they don't cure the breach, then you can move your employment. Or if they're working you outside the underserved area, same thing. But normally, you must stay where you are. Can you be self-employed? No. Okay. Now, let's say you're on the J and you're on the H-1B after you get your J waiver and you want to apply for permanent residence in the United States. Give me a few minutes and we're going to go from J's to permanent residence. Because I haven't had a single person who got a J waiver and then didn't want to become a permanent resident of the United States later on. But I would just want to mention one other visa. Remember I said for some people they come to me too late and then there's just not enough time to get a J waiver before their J status runs out. So what do? One of the wonderful things that we're able to do with only a small minority of physicians, but we have a slide and you can take a look at that, is O1 status. And O1 is a physician of extraordinary ability. You've really risen to the top of whatever field you are. And you might say, well, gee, I'm only a resident or I'm only a fellow. How could I already be to the top of some field? And I'll give you an illustration. And it's not the job that has to require extraordinary ability. It's you. It's your personal qualifications. So I had a physician last year. I represent a major medical research facility, and they're doing research on a particular type of diabetes, and they do transplants of I won't go into all the medical terminology, but he was one of the few doctors that was doing these transplants. And he did have a job offer lined up in a rural area, and I said, go for that. Interested government agency will get you a J waiver. He said, yeah, but Carl, I really want to work in this research area and get an O1. And I said, are you kidding? You're a fellow. What makes you so spectacular that you think you can get an O1? But he sort of twisted my arm, and I said, okay, I'll try to get you an O1. And we looked very, very closely. My staff looked very closely at his application. And we found out that there's only about 10 physicians in the world who did do this type of transplant surgery. So when we got the letters from all the people that are the top surgeons in this area, we said, Dr. whatever my client's name is, he's one of the top 10 in the world in this. The good part of the O visa is that if you're a person of extraordinary ability, you can be on an O for 3 years and then 1-year extensions forever. Okay? The bad part of the O visa is it never waives the 2-year foreign residency requirement. So if you want to go from J to permanent residence, an O visa is just a placeholder for you.